Power Rangers Turbo is a season often not talked about among Ranger fans for a variety of reasons. Many consider it a low point in the franchise, whether talking about the Zordon era, the Saban era, or the franchise as a whole. I myself had never watched the entire 45 episode run, but I decided to fix that. But let me tell you, this show is weird. Weird. Too weird for me to cover all in one go. I want to spend today discussing one of the most bizarre periods in Power Rangers history, the first part of Power Rangers Turbo, the final 19 episodes where we see Rangers and characters who have been with us since all the way back in the beginning. If you aren't caught up to speed, then it's the year 1997, and this is the 5th season of Power Rangers. This season follows the cast members who stayed on from both Mighty Morphin and Zeo, and now follows them as they graduate from high school and enter the world of adulthood. Turbo is the final lap for Tommy, Catherine, Adam, Tanya, and Rocky. Oh wait, not Rocky. He was already gone by the time the series starts. So, I know I should do my due diligence and watch Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, before starting my review of the series, but A, I've watched that movie more than enough times. B, it's genuinely not a fun movie, and is only sometimes considered the best Power Rangers movie to some because it's actually in canon with the series, and the Ranger suits don't look weird like in the MMPR movie. And C, the first episode of Turbo recaps the parts of the movie that are relevant at all to the series. All you need to know about the movie is that an evil space pirate named Detonators kidnapped a fuzzy little dude named Larigo and his family and wanted to use their power to awaken a lava monster named Malagor, whom she wanted to marry. She plans to awaken him from his volcano and have their wedding on an island called the Nemesis Triangle, and in order for the Power Rangers to stop this, they have to get on a ghost ship. But in order for them to get on the ghost ship, they need new turbo powers, and so they get new turbo powers. But, we have one problem.
Oh, my back!
So, Zordon recruits a little kid who had been on a field trip with the Rangers and who eavesdropped on their conversation with Rocky at the hospital. Frankly, I think the little kid Justin just threatened to dox all of Zordon's Rangers, and so he bribed him with a cool car and a Ranger suit to hush him up. Anyways, Bulk and Skull get kidnapped and become Russians, Jason Geiger and Kimberly get kidnapped and are used as sacrifices to revive Malagor. They never explain why Jason isn't hanging out with the rest of the group, since he was literally in the second half of Zeo as the Gold Ranger. The Rangers use their new turbo powers to fight the brainwashed friends, and use their new Megazord to stop Malagor from taking over the world. And basically that all gets recapped in the first storyline of the show, the opening 3-parter, Shift into Turbo. So, in the first actual storyline of the series, the teenage Turbo Rangers are all graduating from Angel Grove High, including Rocky. Justin offers to give him back the powers, but Rocky mentions that he can't, because... And so Justin continues to wield the turbo powers. Divatox interrupts the graduation, and she attacks the 3 Rangers there. But where is Tommy when all this is going on? Oh, he's at the racetrack. He got his diploma early. Okay. While the 3 teenagers fight the Piranatrons and Divatox, Justin is sent off to go investigate a disturbance at the power plant. He finds Elgar, someone who we all wish had gotten thrown into a volcano during the movie. Justin has to fend him off until the others arrive, and it's then they discover that there's a detonator in the plant. And detonators become a main plot thread of the series for a while. Divatox loves her detonators. In concept, it's not a bad idea to create some large-scale destruction. In execution, it's a little weird because a lot of these detonators, even when they go off, are just bombs. Like the kind you get from a bomb factory.
They're bombs.
The detonators aren't a big deal, but they more so are just a different spin on the same concepts as before. The Rangers find the detonator, but they don't have time to safely destroy it. So, they call in their combination blaster / team cannon, the Turbo Ram, to drive it away to safety so they can safely blow it up a few miles away. With the crisis averted, the Rangers return to the school and can proceed as normal for the graduation. But wait, where's Bulk and Skull? Shouldn't they be graduating too?
You lose!
Oh, good God. So yeah, Bulk and Skull get transformed into chimpanzees by Elgar. And unlike every other Power Rangers monster power, this one doesn't go away in one episode. In fact, Bulk and Skull are going to stay like this for the entire stretch of episodes I'm covering today. For 5 months, These two are going to remain as chimpanzees, and let me tell you, it does not ever become funny a single time. It's the same jokes over and over. The chimps need to tell people they're humans. They try to do something human-like. They mess up and piss off Lieutenant Stone. That same shtick for 17 episodes in a row. Anyways, getting away from that downer, Larigo shows up to help Zordon and Alpha 5 return home using an interdimensional wormhole. The third episode of the story revolves around the Rangers trying to stop this wormhole from closing, and Divatox sending out a device to force it to close. But before we get that, we get to find out that Justin managed to inherit Billy's Blue Ranger genes, rather than Rocky's, because he is incredibly proficient in school, so much so that they're bumping him up to high school. Also, they can continue to use the Angel Grove High set and not have to build a new school just for Justin to go to. The Rangers all show up to say goodbye to Zordon and Alpha. Well, Tommy brings his stunt double. The real Tommy is too busy at the racetrack to be here, but they are interrupted by Elgar and a squad of monsters. The Rangers go off and show their cool new car Zords to all the kids watching, and we get an extended off-road car battle. It's cool, although, given the large amount of jokes in the footage, like Tommy pulling out a manual and the bad guy cars driving away with white flags, it's probably time I discuss the Sentai that this is based on soon. So Zeo established that Power Rangers would begin adapting a different Sentai each year, as before that we had 3 years of Ranger costumes for Mighty Morphin, only borrowing the Zord footage from Ranger and Kakuranger. Zeo was adapted from Chorik Sentai Oranger and used everything, including the new suits. Turbo would continue that tradition, adapting the 20th Super Sentai Gekso Sentai Karanger. Karanger is a comedy. It's very lighthearted and goofy, and in many cases a bit of a self-satire of the franchise. O-Ranger was intended to be dark and serious, but real-life conflicts caused the tone of that show to shift midway through, and if I had to guess, the idea was to hit the ground running with a goofy show for Karanger. That's all well and good, Sentai can do what it needs to do, but Power Rangers, as campy and goofy as it is, tended to keep itself a little more grounded and a little more serious with its stories. Well, okay, not in Mighty Morphin, but by Zeo, the characters had grown and matured a little, but so did the stories they were telling. In many ways, due to the nature of Karanger, the producers were somewhat encouraged to play into those more silly elements, but as I will soon discuss, there are more reasons than just Karanger as to why Turbo's early beginnings feel like it isn't living up to what came before. But the point I was trying to get at here is that Karanger is incredibly silly. It's all the better for being incredibly silly. But at this point in the franchise, the last thing Power Rangers was trying to do was to go back to the extreme and over-the-top stuff. And nothing gets more extreme and over-the-top than Karanger. Getting back to the power chamber, the Rangers say goodbye to their old friends, but the monster of the week, Amphibitor, is using a device to destroy the wormhole, which will also destroy Alpha and Zordon if the Rangers don't stop it. The Rangers go back to their Zords again, this time to form the Turbo Megazord, and they finish off the monster. Back at the power chamber, they are greeted by 2 more new friends, Alpha 6, and Demetria of Planet Inquirus. Her somewhat inconsistently done gimmick is her form of providing all advice in the form of a question. I think the idea of a character who asks everything as a question is an interesting next step for the Rangers. They no longer have someone to tell them what to do or where to go, and they have to figure things out on their own from now on. So it's ironically, and perhaps unintentionally, a solid metaphor for graduating high school and entering adulthood. But it does mean that a lot of her dialogue is done in a very groan-inducing, gimmicky manner. We also find out that Divatox knows Demetria and is very pissed to find out she is helping the Rangers. I think the introduction does a decent job establishing the status quo of the series. Well, at least some of it. It isn't anything major or groundbreaking, and it's really just kind of getting things back in motion so the show can continue doing what it's doing. In turn, the first filler episode of the series, Shadow Rangers, is incredibly strange. So, Justin hangs out with Tommy at the auto shop, at least he's not at the racetrack this time. The two notice a bunch of things have gone missing, and while that's going on, the other 3 Rangers meet up and begin discussing their new jobs that they're going to have for the summer, which we will discuss a little more later. For now, they are ambushed by a creature called a Chromite, and this one has a special ability, the ability to create shadowy copies of the Rangers and their powers. So, in only the 4th episode of the series, we have our prerequisite Rangers Fight Evil Copies episode. This is so weird. First of all, it's not like it's based on a Sentai storyline or anything. This episode is 99% original footage. Second, the monster isn't even a regular monster, technically. A chromite is a type of foot soldier that will be introduced later on in the series, and is actually the regular foot soldier of Car Ranger. Sentai and Power Rangers have dabbled with really strong foot soldiers before. I mean, the Super Putties in Season 1 were so strong they needed the Thunder Slingers just to beat them. But that was all the way out in episode 26 of the series, well after a status quo had been established, and it was adapting a Sentai episode. Not to mention, they also had evil rangers for that season way down the line in episode 38. Episode 4 is too soon for your audience to have a sense of what the turbo powers even are or what they can do. While yes, this is not actually the fourth story these Rangers have been involved in, for the purpose of this show, it is still finding its footing, and to make a weird and experimental move this early on in the season is just odd. Another thing I've been pondering is whether or not they should have used this episode as an opportunity to handle that nagging little thread that everybody who watches Turbo after Zeo is thinking. What happened to the Zeo powers? I'm not here to answer that, and I'm not super interested in dissecting that. It's a new show with new powers. At least they aren't spending half the episode in the Zeo costumes like another sequel season does. But given the Shadow Chromite can take their morphin energy and uses a crystal-like prism as a source for his power, it's a shame they don't use this as an opportunity to have the Turbo Rangers fight against clones of the Zeo Rangers. And before you ask how they would explain how they got access to Rocky's power, don't worry, I got you covered. But yeah, it might have gone a long way to helping smooth over the fact that they just stopped using the Zeo powers and instead use the Turbo powers by having a scenario where the Rangers prove why these new Turbo powers are indisputably better than the Zeo powers. Anyways, the other three get captured by their shadow clones, and Tommy and Justin try to save them. Justin gets his power snatched too, so it's all down to Tommy. Demetria plays 20 questions with him, and, like I said earlier, makes him figure out the solution. And it's a solution, alright. He figures out the Shadow Rangers are powered by light refracting, and so he tricks them into going into the shadows to defeat them. Luckily, he also finds Justin's communication device he had been building, because being good at high school math means you can build portable radios. He finds the Rangers, destroys the prism, and sets them free. They go to fight Chromite, but this dude is tough. Way tougher than expected. But before the Stormtrooper can finish gloating, the Rangers decide to bring in the big guns and use the Turbo Megazord to block the sun and defeat the Shadow Chromite once and for all. I guess Tommy remembered the last time he tried this trick out on someone and it working out just fine in his favor. You know, Zordon had a very specific rule about never escalate a battle unless an enemy forces you to, but I guess since he's not here now, the Rangers can just do whatever they like. I bet after this, Justin's gonna stay up past 11 and eat ice cream for dinner. The episode ends with Tommy and Kat arriving at Ernie's juice bar by using the tracking device, and they find all of the missing stuff they were looking for, which was taken by the Vulcan Skull Chimps. The Rangers wonder where Ernie is, and Angel Grove Police Lieutenant Jerome Stone shows up to tell them that Ernie was suddenly called away by his Foreign Service Unit to help build a bridge in the Amazon, and he says this so stone cold that I'm convinced this is a cover story and that the government smoked Ernie for all of the child labor laws that he's broken over the years. I do want to address that it's been long speculated the reason Ernie's actor Richard Janelle left the show was because he was battling health problems at the time, which unfortunately he passed away from in 2008. But yeah, I don't think I could sum this up any better, so I'm just gonna let him say it.
We have a police lieutenant running a friggin' juice bar!
I'm not quite angry about this, nor all the other changes. I will agree, it's very sudden and abrupt, but honestly, I just think it's more funny than anything else. It's very clear that things behind the scenes are spiraling out of control. Tommy's always at the racetrack. Bulk and Skull's actors are busy filming for a pilot for a show that's never getting picked up. We got Carol Hoyt playing double duty as Divatox and Demetria, who herself is filling in for the original actress from Divatox from the movie, Hilary Shepard Turner, while she was pregnant during the time of filming, and because they are desperately running out of recurring characters they can use, they make the goddamn police lieutenant become the owner of the juice bar. In universe, this is a nightmare, but out of universe as a production standpoint, this is hilarious to see unfold. The next episode, Transmission Impossible, is also pretty weird. The main story is about an old friend of Demetria's, Visceron, crash landing on Earth on a mission to deliver a message to Demetria, but being captured by Divatox, and being brainwashed into being her servant. She sends him off on a mission to destroy the Rangers, but he winds up having the detonator going off on him, mortally wounding him. The Rangers bring him to the power chamber where he discloses the message, being that Demetria has a sister. While that's all well and good, I'm much more interested to discuss Tanya's story, as we get to see what I think most of us wish to see for our favorite characters, seeing where they go next. After high school, Tanya starts a job at a radio station, and this plays off her originally producing music back during Zeo, and it's fun to see these characters splintering off doing their own things. It does make you wonder how they're going to handle the responsibilities of adulthood and the responsibilities of being a ranger. I mean, Tommy's got it all figured out because when danger strikes, he shows up at the last minute because he was busy at the racetrack. Justin also shows up late, but I'm guessing it's just because he's a child actor and they probably wanted to save the hassle of labor laws that week. Alright, diving right into the next episode, Rally Rangers, it's probably one of the most stock kid show stories you can write. Remember that episode of Malcolm in the Middle where they got into streetcar racing? Take out the mystery racer, replace Malcolm with Justin, replace Stevie with a bully kid, throw in some scenes of the chimps, strap a bomb onto one of the cars, and you've basically got a worse version of that. But hey, at least Tommy shows up. Probably because they all told him they were going to a racetrack. And we all know how much Tommy loves his racetracks. The next episode, Built for Speed, is like another incredibly stock racing episode, except we start with this 1950s greaser musical sequence that's kind of impressive, and the story focuses more on the greasers who are part of the musical than the actual characters we've been following for the last 4 years now, and somehow the chimps get in the cars, and the greasers are going to have a drag race to see who wins the girl like it's the Middle Ages, and meanwhile Adam is battling an Eva unit from Evangelion using a go-kart, and for some reason the season of the show is still using insert songs from all the way back in Mighty Morphin Season 1.
Come on!
I'll crush you into powder, Ranger!
Oh yeah? You have to catch me first! Time to serve up a little seafood! Let's mangle a mutant!
And, man, this show is literally just running on autopilot. I mean, even Demetria gives up the question gimmick a little bit here. Honestly, there's nothing really to say about it. It's not an episode of Power Rangers Turbo, it's a bootleg episode of Happy Days featuring the cast of Power Rangers Turbo. Next is Bicycle Built for the Blues. Guess what? It's Justin's birthday, and he is mopey because he thinks everyone forgot his birthday. No, they didn't forget your birthday, Justin, but what they actually forgot is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, Episode 10, Happy Birthday, Zach, in which it's Zach's birthday, but he gets mopey because he thinks everyone forgot about it. At this point, the show is just recycling its own plots. So Divatox's monster, Big Burpa, who belches while she talks,
I'll stay to you!
uses her magic to keep Justin's bike moving indefinitely and keep him stuck on the bike so they can recreate the movie's speed and have the detonator go off when the bike travels a certain distance. Justin rides all over town and Tommy tries to stop Big Burpa while the others try to stop Justin's bike. Justin goes all over the park, including floating on water as though he was Justin Christ himself. Tommy shows up and he chases after Justin in the Red Lightning Turbo Zord, but scaled down to the size of an actual car. So I'm assuming this is a prop from the movie, and I'm also assuming they did not have any of the turbo kart props available to use when filming, because logically, an open-faced car would just make more sense to use when you were trying to rescue someone than one with closed doors and windows. So Tommy starts shooting the tires while Justin is still on the bike. And when that doesn't work, he just dive bombs towards Justin and drags him off, thankfully not killing him right before the bike explodes. The Rangers fight, they win, they form Megazord, they go home. Bulk and Skull Chimps ruin the party, uh-oh! But then Lieutenant Stone unruins the party. Throughout the episode, Justin was mentioning how his dad would not forget his birthday, and you'd think this was setting up that Justin's dad isn't available to be in his life a lot because of his job, but no, he's here at the party too. They really managed to pull off a perfect birthday. Also, why is Lieutenant Stone catering a birthday party for some kid he barely knows? And why are they holding this kid's birthday party at an auto shop and not the juice bar, where Lieutenant Stone works and would already have food prepared at? Next episode, The Whole Lie. Justin can't lie. I got nothing for this one, man. What do you want me to say? Do you want me to lie and gas this episode up as something it's not? Tommy's busy at the racetrack. The other three are holding a car wash. Lieutenant Stone forgets he used to be a police officer, and when the monsters strike, he abandons these presumably defenseless teenagers and screams like he's in a horror movie parody. Then they screw up the monster's growth sequence and it's edited super sloppy. Did I mention Tommy was at the racetrack? Even Bulk and Skull don't care about returning to being human this episode and explicitly say they just want to cause some mischief.
Okay, Skull, so we're chimpanzees, and we're supposed to be mischievous.
Let's move on. We really are just running out the clock here on the inevitable, but if you have been enjoying the season so far, then you're definitely an Adam fan, because he gets to take center stage for a lot of these episodes, and the next episode, Glyphhanger, is one I distinctly remember watching prior to this rewatch. Although, I assume that is mostly because of the dynamic fight that they perform at the beginning of the episode with Adam and his stage crew. The rest of the episode is more of the same, but it's got a few interesting beats. The villain of this episode, just called Pharaoh, was Divatox's first fiancée, and if it's anything like her relationship with Malagor, it's clear that she was more interested with him for his wealth and power than anything about his personality. The episode also features a character named Mr. Peabody, who, no, is not a hyper-intelligent, gadget-building dog. No, that's Jeb over on VR Troopers. Mr. Peabody is some old dude who runs the stage show. He kind of feels like he's supposed to be a Mr. Kaplan type, but since the Rangers already graduated, it'd be kind of weird for them to still be hanging around with their high school principal, so this guy just feels like a odd replacement. The three Rangers are attacked by Piranhatrons because the staff Adam has been using for a prop is actually the Pharaoh's real staff, and it has the power to change all text into hieroglyphs. The gang worries that if all the world's text becomes hieroglyphs, nobody will be able to read, or write, or communicate. I just went online and searched for a hieroglyphic translator, and they just have that on Google. Yeah, I'm sure it would be a pain in the ass to retrain society, but they act like this guy is going to cause the end of the world with his powers. Oh, dude, look at him. This guy sucks so much even a bunch of kids are kicking his ass. They meet up with Tommy and Tanya, who are literally just sitting there, doing nothing. I'm guessing Tommy is thinking about being back at the racetrack. The five go back to the show to find the detonator, which Pharaoh disguised as a prop. Mr. Peabody tells them to find the detonator in a scene that was intended to be funny, and the Rangers all morph, finally giving us our first 5-Ranger morph of the season. The Rangers fight, they defeat Pharaoh and the Turbo Megazord, but they realize they forgot the detonator. They find it and manage to safely defuse it. The final scene of the episode is the Rangers going outside the juice bar and seeing Bulk and Skull doing more funny animal antics, and the Rangers all laugh at the hijinks. And wait, who is that girl in the frame standing next to them? She doesn't just seem like a regular extra. Wait, is that Emily? Jason's girlfriend from Zeo? Yeah, it is! I didn't recognize her at first because she didn't have any lines, but considering she wore orange every episode in Zeo, I should have clocked it. Apparently she did have some lines in the original script, and was intended to be working at the juice bar with Lieutenant Stone. So anyways, this episode is better than the last couple of episodes that we've seen so far, but it's still a far cry from the quality that we saw back in Power Rangers Zeo. However, hopefully the next episode will bring the quality a little bit closer to what we've seen before. Episode 11 is Wait and See, and it's an episode about bullying people for their weight and body dysmorphia? Huh. Catherine is auditioning for a dance recital, but a mean girl named Myrtle is being the blueprint for Sharpay from High School Musical because she always gets the lead in the productions, and is condescending and rude to anyone she feels threatened by. She takes pot shots at Kat, calling her big and large. Now, I understand that bullying is very much a psychological thing, and that it's easy to let what people say about you become the reality that you believe, but even by 1990 standards, I don't think there's many people who would consider Catherine overweight. I think the writers are confusing big because you are tall, and big because you are more heavy-set. Regardless if you disagree with my perspective in assuming this is a writing mistake, and you take the story at face value, the story continues on, and Kat begins to not eat and starts feeling weak and unable to focus. This is amplified when the Rangers are attacked by Numbor, a monster who can control people's weights. Now, you would think a monster like this would use his powers of changing numbers to make Catherine weigh more when she goes to check a scale, and thereby cause her to continue to starve herself sick, but no, he uses his powers to make her as light as a feather, and then she blows away in the wind, and the other Rangers have to go save her. I mean, he is also planning on changing the tides of the ocean in a scene that confirms that Adam is actually a milkman, but the main focus comes down to fixing Kat's weightlessness. Demetria asks Kat if what matters most is what's on the outside or what's on the inside, and this alone happens to be the answer the show was looking for, as that breaks the spell. Numbor leaves the other four incapacitated, but Kat comes in and absolutely beats the pie out of Numbor. He grows, and Numbor starts doing weird things.
Ducks? Don't I just quack you up?
The episode ends with Kat performing the show and everyone giving Kat a standing ovation. So, the episode has a good idea, but it doesn't really execute it in a compelling way. The concept of handling bullying and overcoming your own self-doubts is not really what this episode is about. As I said, the idea of Kat dealing with her weight is more of an excuse to incorporate a number-based monster into the episode. It feels like the two elements don't come together. I will say there is an episode coming up fairly soon that honestly feels like a better version of this story. Continuing on the bullying mini-arc, we have Alarmed and Dangerous. Justin gets bullied because he's, a literal 12-year-old, but more importantly, the bullies wanted Justin to help him cheat on a test, not to mention Justin ratting on them for pulling the fire alarm. Justin is intimidated in the hall and wants to use his ranger powers to stop the bullies. He is scolded by Kat throughout the episode when he considers morphing, and even when he teleports to evade them chasing him through the park. I must have been completely tired when I watched this because I completely forgot about the other subplot with the firefighters and the fire truck, mostly because it's a non-factor until the very end of the episode. They basically rush through the entire action climax, fighting a flying evil fire truck, and just blowing it up with their auto blasters. They don't even call the Megazord, in a calamity that absolutely should have warranted use of a Megazord. Justin and the bully talk. They trauma bond over not seeing their parents much, although at least Justin showed up on his birthday. This kid hasn't seen his dad in 2 years. And Justin agrees to help them study so he doesn't have to cheat on any more tests. Despite how brief my description was, I think this is a decent episode, especially compared to the last one. Maybe having Tommy here from the start, and not at the racetrack, helps the cohesion of the story, but this felt the closest thing to an episode of Zeo we've gotten so far. The bullying here is more surface level, but Power Rangers is kind of known best for its cheesy moral of the day plots anyways. It even ends with an MMPR style fanfare of the olden days to really drive it home. The Sentai footage here is rushed and weirdly mangled, and for people who want more action, I can see this as being a disappointing episode, but by the standards set so far, it's okay. From firemen to the police, we move on to episode 13, The Millennium Message. The main story is about a robot who is sent from the future, the Blue Senturion, crash landing on Earth on a mission to deliver a message to Demetria, but being captured by Detonators, and being brainwashed into being her servant. She sends him off on a mission to destroy the Rangers, but he winds up having the detonator going off inside him, seemingly destroying him. The Rangers bring him to the power chamber after he discloses the message about the villains conquering Earth, but there being one force that can stop them. A Blue Ranger-like ally who comes from far away bearing a message to aid and assist the Rangers and Demetria? Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I don't understand why they copy-pasted the Visceron storyline and reused it, instead of just cutting the Visceron episode and saving this story beat for the Blue Senturion, a character who's actually going to matter in the story. They try to play up the Blue Senturion like he's this big threat, and it almost feels like they're attempting another Green with evil given he's a good guy brainwashed into being evil, but it just does not work. Sticking too close to the Car Ranger footage means the show can't commit to being serious or silly when it needs to just pick a lane and stick with it. It doesn't help that this episode actually combines 2 episodes into one, and man does it feel like it. Tommy and Justin forget to defuse the detonator before reactivating the Blue Senturion, and that's all just an excuse to pad out the episode and add stakes. Divatox blows the Blue Senturion up, she shows up to gloat, and in less than a minute he's okay in piloting his Zord. Unlike with Visceron's message, in which Demetria learns the truth but not Divatox, this time Divatox hears the message. By the year 2000, the universe will be conquered and divided up by all the past villains, Lord Zed, Rita, the Machine Empire, and Divatox. She sees a force that is able to stand up to and defeat her, but we don't get to see who that is. Unfortunately, that part of the message has been destroyed by the time the Rangers get to hear it from the Blue Senturion himself, and so we get a story thread that the show is definitely going to come back to. But not right now. I wonder what new heroes are going to show up to save the Earth from villainy. Will it be someone we know? Or will it be someone entirely new? But enough of that. In the next episode, the show is going to introduce us to some characters that are entirely new. Carlos and Ashley in A Drive to Win. Adam is coaching a soccer team, and his new player Carlos is a bit of a showboat. He knows he's good, but he doesn't know how to play with the rest of the team. He's also trying to show off how good he is to impress the head cheerleader, Ashley. Oh no, is this going to be like Built for Speed again, and they focus all the development on these one-off characters? At the juice bar, Tommy is living every 90s kid's dream of having Kat and Tanya throwing him to the ground while they practice martial arts. Hey, maybe they should ask Rocky to join in too. I'm sorry, I'll stop. It's getting old now. Anyway, they mentioned going to the big game tomorrow, and Tommy, despite actually having been in the last several episodes, says he's gonna have to miss the game because he's gotta go to the racetrack. They mention how quiet it's been lately without Diva Talks, and unlike a certain team of Rangers, don't assume this automatically means the main villain has given up and gone home. The practice is interrupted by Piranhatrons, and Adam tries to stop them, but both Carlos and Ashley join in to do their best to fend them off. It turns out Diva Talks is Carlos' biggest fan, because she decides he's so good they're gonna rig the scoreboard with a detonator to go off when Angel Grove, and primarily Carlos, scores 4 goals.
That Carlos is such a hotshot, and what he doesn't know is that every goal is a countdown to destruction! Bang!
Well, was that on purpose? Did they know? Did they know? And so it's a race for the Rangers to find the detonator and stop it, and to do it before Carlos blows the park sky high. The Rangers, including Adam, have to leave to go fend off Elgar and a new monster, and I mean, it's a cool enough fight. Adam catches a bike with his bare, gloved hands, and I'm pretty sure this is a Kamen Rider reference.
Who said green guys can't dance?
What the fuck? So the Rangers defeat the monster and return to the game, with the game tied 3-3. In a photo finish, Justin is able to stop the detonator, and the only reason he had that time is because instead of Carlos just going for the goal on his own, he passes the ball to this guy in glasses, Wally, and he scores the winning goal. And man, they are really hyping this guy up. It would be cool if that Wally kid became a Ranger down the line. Carlos learns to be a team player, and Ashley agrees to let him walk her home again. So, we all know what they're doing with this episode. But for those who watch this for the very first time, they set up Carlos and Ashley as these recurring characters throughout the show, and I think they do a good job. They give the characters more defined flaws. They're still a little one-dimensional, but it helps set them apart from the clinically wholesome Mighty Morphin cast, and helps them feel a little bit more realistic. If this episode wants me to care about this Carlos guy, then they definitely succeeded. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys more throughout the show. This guy's gotta be the new Richie. Remember Richie from Season 2? Yeah. So in this next episode, Cars Attacks, Catherine's performing a dance and is bullied for it by a new girl. Wait, didn't we already do this one? Oh, so this is the one I said was a better episode of Wait and See. Kinda. So what makes this story different is that they actually develop an arc for this girl, Jenny. She is Lieutenant Stone's niece who is staying with him for the summer. Jenny has to adjust to a new environment and having to make new friends. On top of this, Lieutenant Stone asks her if she knows where the missing money at the juice bar went, and she internalizes it as him assuming she did it. Jenny and Kat compete in the Dance Academy audition and both get finalist spots. But unfortunately, that interesting story thread is going to have to wait because Diva Talks isn't playing around this time. She goes all out on the offensive. She puts a detonator in the dance hall, she sends all of her henchmen up to Earth to fight the Rangers in an impressive all-out brawl, and she even recruits a monster who has the power to bring anything to life. Man, the potential this power has alone is insane. This monster could revive old defeated monsters, villains, hell, she could even bring back Diva Talks' deceased fiancé, Malagor. Of course, if I'm saying if, then that means that none of this happens. All he does is bring cars to life and have them create a ring around the Earth. Even by Power Ranger standards, this is really silly. This is adapting the second episode of Car Ranger, and honestly, I can see why it's been skipped up until now.
Where are the torpedoes? We thought we'd get them all nice and shiny for you, boss!
God, this show is just going off the rails now. Anyways, the Rangers win the big brawl I mentioned earlier with the help of the Blue Senturion, and everyone retreats. The Rangers still have to defuse the detonator, and they manage to get it out in time. The auditions continue, and, not surprisingly, Jenny loses to Kat, but what is surprising is that she's explicitly told it's because of her bad attitude and dismissive behavior. She storms out, and Kat goes to confront her.
Is this where we have our cozy heart-to-heart talk and hug and become best friends?
Look, Jenny, I didn't even know if I'd want to be your friend.
That's what we've been waiting for!
At the juice bar, Kat considers giving up her chance at the Dance Academy, but before we can find out her decision, the episode actually ends with what feels like sincere apologies from Jenny to her uncle, and Kat sees her trying to make a change in her outlook and smiles back to her. This is probably one of the best episodes of this bunch so far. It's got action, it's got stakes, it's got scope, and it's even got a little heart in it. It's not the greatest episode of Power Rangers, but it shows the writers still have what it takes to tell emotionally rich stories beyond just the basic high school framework. it gives me hope they can really expand out these Rangers into their adult lives. So the next 2 episodes are about the Rangers getting hit with a shrink ray and turning into bugs, while Justin chases the chimps who have stolen Lieutenant Surge's car. Again. Let me tell you guys, these 2 episodes broke me. I was absolutely losing it. What's so bad about them? Let's talk about Honey, I Shrunk the Rangers. It starts off with the mayor of Angel Grove, a character whose last significant moment was back in Season 1 of Power Rangers' original 2-part finale, Doomsday, thanking the town for joining in to help clean up, and that the team that collects the most garbage will win a donation to the organization of their choice. Adam wants to raise money for their soccer team for him and Carlos, but Justin mentions how Ashley is going to be fierce competition for them. Divatox actually enacts a surprisingly competent maneuver of having Elgar come down and attack Justin and Adam in front of the other kids, preventing them from exposing their secret identity and morphing. Before I keep you here for an hour and dissect the fact that Power Rangers' secret identities never make sense when the villain knows who you are and knows who your friends are, Adam stalls the Piranhatrons long enough for the Blue Senturion to bail them out.
Malicious littering. It's an ugly thing.
Blue Centurion's one weakness is revealed, the weakness of all the strongest warriors. A fly. Now, I don't normally mention the Bulk and Skull chimps, but this week, their grand plan to get people to recognize them is to clean up the most trash to win the contest. So they decide to steal Lieutenant Stone's car, and hijinks ensues. This is like the 3rd time the chimps have driven his car before, so by this point it's kind of Lieutenant Stone's own fault for leaving the keys out in the open. Lieutenant Stone chases after them, and, forgetting he used to be a cop, has to pay a little girl for her bike instead of just commandeering it. Now, I cannot believe I am actually going to use this show as an example, but of all shows I've seen to make this joke work, the Knuckles show on Paramount Plus actually did this joke better.
Look, here's $4. I'm a deputy lieutenant sheriff. I would never do this ordinarily, but I am commandeering this vehicle.
Blue Senturion, being a textbook TV cop, is walking old ladies across the street when all of a sudden his body is invaded by
A fly. A housefly.
The Rangers are called away to go help the Blue Senturion from going haywire, and in the same episode where they make a big deal about the Rangers not revealing their secret identities, all 5 Rangers, unmorphed, try to stop the Blue Senturion from going out of control in front of a crowd of people. Before they can stop him, the chimps drive by, and Justin has to go and stop them, only now morphing to stop an out-of-control car. While obviously the Power Rangers should use their powers for good, it seems extremely weird that the alien fly infesting the robotic comrade is not something to consider morphing for, but an out-of-control stolen vehicle, a fairly more mundane circumstance, is what gets someone to morph.
Hey, Skull, did you hear something?
God, this show has gotten so weird, so fast. Justin stops the car and finds the Blue Senturion shrunken by the monster, and the Rangers do the only natural thing in his time of need. No, Tommy doesn't do that. See, he and the other Rangers were ambushed by Elgar, and the monster used his shrinking powers to capture them and bring them right into Divatox's base. The Rangers see a giant Divatox looming over them, and we cut to their bug wings, with "to be continued" on the screen. And that was it for 4 months. Yeah, I'm not kidding. For 4 months, this was the cliffhanger that fans were waiting to see what happened. This was even advertised as a season finale in some markets.
3 new episodes, the season finale of Power Rangers Turbo. Watch for the season finale of Power Rangers Turbo starting Monday after Beetleborgs on Fox.
You know, it really puts into perspective how mid-season hiatuses weren't actually that new by the time the show got to Nickelodeon. It's just the decreased episode count made it seem longer. So Megaforce Part 2 is coming along well, thanks for asking. Anyways, after 4 months of nothing, fans were finally greeted to the conclusion of this story in September of that year with Honey, I Shrunk the Rangers, Part 2. So this episode is actually insane. The Rangers use their helmet headlights, which they haven't used at all up until this point, and have to escape from Divatox's lair. They are shrunken down and go on a bunch of poorly blue-screened adventures. You know, maybe that's the other reason Justin isn't here. His suit wouldn't work on the blue screen. The tiny Rangers are spotted, and we also get to see that this episode was directed by Toku legend Koichi Sakamoto himself. This is the second episode of Power Rangers he ever directed. the first being King for a Day back in Zeo. But he's also done some work on the show all the way back since Mighty Morphin Season 3. Oh yeah, the episode. So Divatox has them cornered and...
Look out! Mighty Morsel Power Rangers.
This better not awaken anything in me.
Okay, one sexual awakening later, the Rangers are free. Okay, 2 sexual awakenings later, the Rangers cut a hole in a pipe and escape into the interior of a water slide at an amusement park. But the Rangers aren't the only ones allowed to have fun, so the Piranhatrons hop on the water slide next. They catch up to the Rangers, and they get into this fight in an admittedly impressive set of giant objects. But what's not impressive is this song.
They're crooked, they're crazy, they're wacky. They're stupid, they're useless, they're lazy.
Thankfully, we get a break and go back to the power chamber, where Justin is trying to help Alpha fix Blue Senturion. Not only is he tiny, but for some reason he is malfunctioning again like he was last episode when the bug was inside of him. Lieutenant Stone is having a mental breakdown as he tries to rationalize why a bunch of chimps keep causing him so much chaos, and he even acknowledges it's not like they can understand him. And instead of Bulk and Skull using this one chance to finally convince Lieutenant Stone who they are, they just focus on the trash thing again. As the Rangers travel deeper, they start becoming more and more bug-like, before suddenly being attacked by... my sleep paralysis demon? The Rangers get to safety and make it to Divatox's bedroom. They stumble upon Elgar's toy car, and they manage to use it to escape.
Huh?
What the hell is happening in this show? This episode just never seems to end. The Rangers figure out a plan to escape by launching the torpedoes and riding them out. They rig the key, they climb on, they launch, they somehow aren't ripped to shreds by the intense force of the torpedoes. The Rangers call Justin, explain they're going to hopefully use the torpedoes to make them grow, similar to how it turns monsters giant size. Justin meets up with them at the landing spot and brings Blue Senturion to hopefully restore him to normal too. Somehow the exploding missiles do not kill everyone, but it actually restores them all to normal and removes their bug parts. We mercifully get some Car Ranger footage to break this scene up, and when we cut back, Bulk and Skull walk over to the torpedo crash site, and miraculously, the chemicals from the torpedo fix the chimp spell, but it also turns them invisible? Whatever. Thankfully, that means this episode is finally over. They did it. They somehow made an entire episode with almost none of the actors. The only actors we see are Justin's Lieutenant Stone, Divatox, and technically the chimps. The adult Rangers never appear on camera in this episode. This episode is actual insanity. So many weird, experimental, visually abstract things happen. Bizarre visual choices, probably very expensive special effects, all to tell a story in which you don't have to film footage of Tommy, Kat, Adam, and Tanya. You know, they should have just called in our man in blue himself. You know the one. He would have saved everyone in no time.
Oh, my back!
As for being a functional episode, it's not. For one thing, the charity organization storyline in part 1 is literally abandoned by the end of the first episode. They basically just forget about it, save for Bulk and Skull still going around collecting cans. There's no character arc. It's just a series of things happening. They knew what episodes were coming next, and absolutely could have written a few lines about Justin having to step up to the plate and lead the team if Tommy and the others weren't around, but no. Just a bunch of weird vignettes. I just want to know what happened. Did the show go over budget? Did the actors leave? Were they short an episode? What the hell was that song? What the hell were those eels? Why are Bulk and Skull invisible? It's time for things to change, and clearly the producers thought that too, because after this one, everything changes. Let's get ready for passing the torch. To start this one off, we're greeted with Divatox's mother speaking to her in a dream. Now, Power Rangers is known for overacting, but this woman really overacts her lines, like she's in a movie where the hero is a dog.
Like you ever listened to me.
Anyways, she's here to chew out Divatox for disgracing the family name, and tells her that the key to taking out the Power Rangers is to eliminate the leader. Which, to be fair, is pretty good advice. It almost worked out for King Mondo when he tried capturing the Red Ranger. And so, Divatox begins plotting her biggest plan yet.
You better watch out, Tommy boy.
Come on, give me your best shot. I'll give you a free one. Let me have it.
We cut to Tommy and Kat driving down a dirt road, and given how dramatically the show is about to change, we get a cute reference to the past with Kat mentioning how she's surprised Tommy is on time, and Tommy acknowledging how he's always late, which is both a dig at how he's always at the racetrack and showing up late to fights in this season, but it also feels like a throwback to his time back in Mighty Morphin as the Green Ranger, where he always wound up showing up late to the fights to make up for the fact that his Sentai counterpart barely had any footage that they could use half the time. Before we reminisce about the time Kat was an actual evil cat, or when Tommy fought rats with his clones in 1500s colonial California, the two are ambushed by a squad of Piranatrons and being hunted down. Meanwhile, the other Rangers are busy setting up a campsite, Tanya also mentioning Tommy's penchant for being late. Unfortunately for them, Tommy's living up to his legacy of blowing up vehicles and running late, because the Jeep goes down and Tommy's knocked out, leaving Kat alone to defend herself.
Oh my god, we're burning alive!
Over with the others, we really get the feeling something is different about this episode, because while Justin is gathering supplies, he's ambushed by a monster called a Flamite, and even has his key knocked out of his hand, preventing him from morphing. Before Adam and Tanya can make their way over to Justin though, they're attacked by these disgusting creatures called putrapods, who apparently were in the Turbo movie as well, but have a much more prominent role here, hatching from eggs like an alien. The whole episode evokes these themes of almost a horror movie, definitely evokes more intense drama. It's the first time in the entire season that I've actually felt compelled by what's happening in the story and feel genuine stakes for the Rangers. The acting is top-notch, but the cinematography and directing feels like something totally different for Turbo. Kat seems like she's about to be taken by the Piranatrons too, but she's thankfully saved by these two passerbys, and they help her fend off the oncoming threat. But who are these people? Well, one of them is named TJ, and the other's name is Cassie. The two have spent the afternoon on a bus, with TJ planning to go to Angel Grove to improve his baseball career, and Cassie on her way to Stone Canyon to improve her singing career. The two have a montage of Cassie trying on clothes, and TJ just being TJ, intercut with shots of Tommy and Kat running for their lives, and when Tommy's Jeep explodes, TJ hears the noise and runs to go help whoever it might be in danger. Cassie...
You're gonna miss the bus!
She does thankfully come around, missing her bus, and when TJ notices Kat in danger, he rushes in to save her, while Cassie, a bit more reserved about this, eventually follows TJ. They run over to Kat, completely missing both the unconscious Tommy and the other putropod hatching near them, and get ambushed by a fresh squad of Piranatrons.
Oh man, what have I gotten into?
Over at the campsite, Adam and Tanya manage to get away from the putropod long enough to try to rescue Justin, but this Flamite might be one of the most OP monsters that they've ever fought. He effortlessly roundhouses both Adam and Tanya's keys. The Rangers are at a complete disadvantage, made all the worse by Alpha calling them to let them know Tommy and Kat are also in danger. They eventually manage to get their keys back and morph in part 2, using a bucket of water when even their Turbo Ram weapons aren't effective against this guy. The Rangers manage to fend him off and run off to find Tommy and Kat, but unfortunately they weren't fast enough, as while TJ and Cassie were busy fending off the Piranatrons...
Where did you learn to do that?
My ancestors invented it.
Kat was able to break away from the fight, but watched helplessly as Tommy was dragged off by the putropod.
No, I can't feel my legs!
Tommy is dragged into a cave, where Divatox and Elgar are waiting in order to exact their revenge on the leader of the Power Rangers, which is how we end Part 1. Part 2 opens up with the other three Rangers fending off Flamite and running off to meet up with Kat, but after the intro they find Kat, and, armed with a little firepower, cause the Piranatrons to finally retreat. The Rangers question Kat, obviously pretending not to know her, and she mentions Tommy being taken by a monster, referring to the other putropod. Cassie offers to stay with Kat, showing a bit more empathy than she did last episode.
This is crazy! I don't want to be involved in this!
Me neither, but what are we gonna do, leave her alone with them?
But they all agree to let the Rangers handle it from here. Tommy is busy being hung up and tortured by Divatox, although beyond boring him to death with banter between her and her mother, Mama D summons the Vortex of Doom, a nondescript dimension, which is apparently also where Divatox's father lives.
He asked for it.
And instead of lowering him down slowly with the pulley the rope is already connected to, she decides to use rats to finish the job, who must also be getting revenge for the merciless slaughter of their people by Tommy and his clones some 500 years ago. Okay, snark aside, the rest of her plan is significantly better. While Tommy's rope is being chewed by the rats, the Rangers are busy with a giant flamite running through town. On top of all of that, there is a third, additional, unspecified task that must be completed in a specific time window, marked by a golden hourglass. This will keep popping up throughout the episode, and characters will comment on it, but when it comes time to reveal what it's actually about, you'll understand why the timer is kind of a non-issue. Once again illustrating the change of tone and visual language, we've got a town in distress, debris and damaged buildings all over, military officials directing people out of the city, fire trucks everywhere, something that normally feels detached from the main conflict of the episodes, a giant monster storming through town, is being made out to be the end of the world conflict that it should normally be treated as. The Rangers go through town, doing their best to aid the police and the firemen, while Tanya finds Ashley and Adam finds Carlos, and they both agree to help the Rangers evacuate citizens from the attack. It's cool to see them continue to use these recurring side characters in supporting roles during the more dramatic story beats. Hopefully the same can be said for those TJ and Cassie characters, who, while all this is going on, are making their way down the hill, and get into a discussion about their dreams and their role models. We get an interesting dive into TJ, stating that when he was a kid, he always wanted to be a Power Ranger. He must have heard legends about the Samurai Power Rangers growing up. As for Cassie...
What kid wouldn't want to grow up to be a Power Ranger?
Me. I just wanted to be like Tina Turner.
Okay, I'm gonna level with you. As of this point in the franchise, Cassie might actually be my favorite character. She is hilarious. Although, when TJ finds a trail of slime on the ground, Cassie decides to go home and let the Power Rangers handle things, while TJ continues to push on. She does once again come back and tells TJ that she would never abandon a friend, and that she now considers them friends. It's corny and it's brushed over pretty quick, but one of Power Rangers' biggest strengths is showing people of all walks of life, whether a different race, gender, or background, or in this case, someone who is brave and leaps into danger, and someone who is more cautious and nervous in stressful situations, coming together for the greater good. TJ and Cassie find Tommy in a cave suspended over the vortex, and the two manage to rescue Tommy just in the nick of time. The three exit the cave, and Tommy, recognizing the sound coming from Angel Grove, instructs the two to get to safety, while Tommy teleports away.
He's gone.
So am I.
Tommy makes it into town, and the executives can cry a sigh of relief, as we finally get to use some Sentai footage in a surprisingly low-key Megazord battle to close the fight out on. We see Divatox being scolded by her mother, and Divatox regressing emotionally, likely due to some seriously undiagnosed childhood trauma. With all of that out of the way, there's still one thing left to do. Alpha 6 and Demetria prepare a ceremony for the Rangers, and they go through the same door they used when they first received their turbo powers back in the movie, only this time, instead of a single podium, the room is adorned with some familiar-looking pillars, and some even more familiar-looking friends.
Zordon!
Rangers, it is so good to see you again.
Aye, aye, aye! We wouldn't miss it.
And, if you somehow haven't figured it out yet, or somehow managed to avoid spoilers for a nearly 30-year-old show, then you just found out that the Power Rangers are changing. Forever. Today, we say goodbye to Tanya, Adam, Kat, and Tommy, who are on their way to adulthood and ready to move on in their lives. And in their place, we introduce Ashley, Carlos, Cassie, and TJ as the new generation of Power Rangers. And what of Justin? Who will be replacing him?
Oh, my back!
No. Justin will be staying on and continuing his adventures with a whole new group of heroes as the journey continues. As a pair of episodes, this was a big step up in quality from where we've been so far this season. I've made it no secret how much atmosphere and tension I feel these episodes provide, and I think it's a solid story. It also has the amusing honor of being the first, but certainly not the last time an episode will feel like Tommy is overshadowing the other veteran Rangers in the presence of new ones. It's funny, I'm talking about Tommy like he's a guest character on his own show, but it does feel like that in this episode. These episodes are framed so much around TJ and Cassie, it kind of feels like it's their story, and that Tommy and Kat just happen to cross over into it. Any minute, I'm expecting to hear the studio audience cheering.
At least you're on time today. I'm impressed.
I'm always on time. Well, except for times I'm late.
While I was just praising earlier how much danger everyone was put in, the tension eases up a little once the other four Rangers morph and head into the city. Unlike Tommy, their conflict becomes less about being in immediate danger, and more so about being put to the ultimate test against Flamite. Although, the episode makes it abundantly clear that without the help of their new friends, they would not have been able to overcome this obstacle and rescue Tommy. When it comes to introducing brand new characters, while also writing out old ones in a brief period of time, the writers have learned a lot from the olden days of the Stone Canyon trio. Ashley and Carlos were established back in episode 14, have been evolved in a few episodes, and have clearly proven their merits to Adam. Mainly just Adam, but he's seen their flaws be turned into strengths, and knows that they are good kids he can trust. Although, if they weren't sure before, then Adam and Tanya stalking them throughout the day must have proven to them that they are worthy of inheriting these powers. When it comes to TJ and Cassie, this episode was all one big example of them proving their merits as potential Rangers. TJ shows that he's willing to jump headfirst into danger, even at his own risk, and Cassie, while a bit self-centered at first, is still willing to risk her own happiness and dreams to protect someone she considers a friend. All four of the new Rangers have some layer of complexity and texture to their personality that was a little bit lacking in the olden days of MMPR, so it's nice to see that we can start fresh with some more thoroughly complex characters as we enter this new age of the show. Well, complex by mid-90s Power Rangers standards. In the episode proper, the scene where Tommy asks TJ his name and the two shake hands doesn't really seem like much. But in reality, it's the moment where Tommy realizes that TJ, and I guess also Cassie, are the perfect candidates to pick up the mantle and keep the world safe. The handshake itself being a passing the torch moment.
He said it! He said it!
And so we say goodbye to our friends of almost half a decade and are entrusting the safety of Earth to a bunch of nobodies. And to be honest, that's for the best. They clearly were out of ideas for what to do with the old Rangers, and to be honest, that's part of the problem. Zio did such a good job wrapping up many of the characters' stories. Tommy reunited with his brother. Tanya stood up for herself from her jerk boyfriend and worked on her singing career, as well as reuniting with her parents. Kat got together with Tommy after Kim broke up with him, and she had a short rivalry with Archerina. Rocky and Adam got characterization. Zio wasn't the greatest piece of television ever written, but there was a level of maturity and growth that could be felt in the way the characters spoke and acted. Characters were free to poke fun at each other, and while they were still good people, they didn't have to be such strictly Puritan archetypes like they were back in Mighty Morphin. But since Turbo's main goal seemed to be to just run out the clock while they phase out the old Rangers, it felt like the writers decided to fall back on some old writing habits. It's a little ironic then that the final story these Rangers are involved in unintentionally portrays them as sloppy and a little careless with their safety, even indirectly endorsing the idea that these Rangers' best days are behind them and it's time they hang up their suits and pass their powers on to a new generation. There's also this common talking point of Turbo being designed to appeal to even younger kids than before, as the audience who was watching Power Rangers during Mighty Morphin all the way back in 1993 were phasing out of the show by 1996 with Zio, and definitely after the Turbo movie in 1997. Not to mention that one of Saban's other tokusatsu adaptations, Big Bad Beetleborgs, was beating Power Rangers in television ratings. Beetleborgs was all about kids turning into adult-sized superheroes, so it's no wonder a franchise in decline like Power Rangers decided to copy their little siblings' homework and come up with Justin. Justin is very obviously a big component in the appeal to kids angle, and given he was the most unique main character the franchise had done up until this point, he gets time to really flesh himself out, at the expense of the other characters who had already been given their time to shine. We get to learn about his family life, his somewhat disorganized family life living with his dad, and his difficulty adapting to being a fish out of water in a new school. The discourse around this character is so wildly divisive. Some primarily see him as a marketing stunt and a real drag on the tone of the show. a way to anchor the adult cast to the school settings and to dumb down the writing. Maybe people just didn't like that they turned Justin into TJ from Smart Guy, a WB sitcom in which a super smart 10-year-old boy gets moved up from 4th grade all the way to high school, which began airing at the start of April 1997, just weeks before Justin's character was changed from the movie, where he was just an average kid who no one understands, into also becoming a super smart child prodigy who also got bumped all the way to high school. Look, I'm sure the Smart Guy connection is a total reach on my part. This is probably like one of those Dennis the Menace situations where two different characters who bear a striking resemblance just so happen to have been created at the exact same time. A menace is one thing people will not call Justin, though. Opinions have shifted over the years, and at least in terms of the character, many people tend to agree with my opinion that Justin is one of the better things done in execution for Turbo. He's very competent, very sincere, and his character helps reset the show back to its status quo. He's the audience surrogate. He makes mistakes. He's not a trained martial artist, and he's going through stuff at home with him feeling neglected by his parents. Just because his creation was a marketing stunt doesn't mean the character didn't stick the landing in the end. There were a few scenes where I felt the influence of Beetleborgs creeping in, the gross-out humor, the chimpanzees making funny noises, some really weird camera angles and shots. I'm convinced that Honey, I Shrunk the Rangers was originally written for Beetleborgs before it got repurposed into Power Rangers. Speaking of writing, one of the main writers for those 2 episodes, Shel Danielson, also wrote Passing the Torch, which is incredible because the quality difference in those stories is night and day. She wrote a lot of the big event episodes of Mighty Morphin Seasons 2 and 3, such as The Mutiny and Ninja Quest, as well as being one of the writers on the Turbo movie. Passing the Torch was actually the final pair of episodes she worked on the franchise for. Well, I can't say everything she did as a writer was a winner. I mean, what writer can you say that about? Shel Danielson definitely knew how to write stories with big stakes and to make things feel larger than they are. Passing the Torch, her final episodes for Power Rangers, were the best way to write these characters out, given the circumstances they were in, as well as to introduce our new team of Power Rangers. And it's funny, I mentioned Mighty Morphin because in a lot of ways, this show feels more like Mighty Morphin than Zeo. And that's not necessarily a compliment. You know what early Turbo reminds me the most of, though? It reminds me of the Alien Ranger arc. The Alien Ranger arc was this weird, experimental 10-episode chunk which existed just to fill time and to create a buffer between the old and the new. It introduced new characters, new gimmicks, new settings, all to get the audience primed for something entirely new, which in their case was Zeo, but in the case of this first batch of Turbo episodes, it was also setting up a transition from the old days to a whole new team of Rangers: TJ, Cassie, Carlos, Ashley, and of course, Justin. Given what the end goal plan of Power Rangers was at the time, and what they had waiting for them in the future, it's easy to think of early Turbo as a speed bump you just have to get past to get to the good stuff down the line. And yeah, let's be frank, a lot of these episodes are not good. Tommy is always, say it with me folks, at the racetrack. Tanya exists. Adam gets a lot to do, but doesn't really get any development. I don't even think the writers fully know what they want him to be doing. Is he a stunt guy, or just a stage actor? His most consistent thing is coaching soccer, which ties him directly to Ashley and Carlos. However, spoilers by the way, since all the old Rangers stop showing up after this point, he just stops coaching soccer, which will have interesting implications for what they do with Ashley and Carlos in the future. Catherine feels like the closest to a fully thought out character of the adult Rangers, having a story arc about her dance recital, the challenges that come with it, and the potential of moving away from all her friends, before eventually retiring her Pink Ranger powers to someone else. Wait, where have I heard this one before? Man, even the good stuff in Turbo is just being lifted from earlier seasons. It's clear that they did not have a plan with these characters, but had to keep them around long enough to transition the new cast in. From what I could find, which a good chunk of which came from Nakia and Catherine's YouTube show, Power Rangers Playback, JDF wanted to move on with his career, and because everyone's contracts were expiring, the producers chose to replace the entire team rather than just replacing Tommy. I'll have the video link below if you want to hear more, although always take it with a grain of salt, but the anecdote about Johnny Young Bosch bringing a newspaper advertising them holding auditions for new Power Rangers actors has circulated long before this video. If it wasn't obvious by now, this is why Tommy was always at the racetrack. because his actor was busy moving on with his career, which left the other 3 actors to hold down the fort, slowly trying to build up story arcs that the producers never planned to go anywhere. Kat had an entire episode about not wanting to move away from her friends, and then 4 episodes later she's giving up her powers and moving on with her life. This whole season so far has been the show trying to reboot itself in real time. The Rangers graduated, Zordon and Alpha 5 went home, Bulk and Skull's actors left to go film a pilot, Ernie left and was replaced with Lieutenant Stone, Rocky, well, you know. Even with the movie, there's no explanation where Jason went afterwards, Emily got written out of the show, only remaining as a blink and you'll miss it cameo. If their plan is to completely start from scratch in an effort to bring back viewers and create interest with the younger generation, then this is one hell of a way to do it. It's a bold strategy, but one that has the potential to pay off big time if they stick the landing. But for now, the hope of the franchise is in the hands of Justin, the now unchimped Bulk and Skull, Juiceman Lieutenant Stone, and the 4 new Rangers to hopefully carry us forward to greater heights, higher than ever before, and hopefully keep the franchise going. How will the new team fare, and how do we get from this point into space? Well, I really like doing this style of video, and I want to keep watching Turbo and maybe do a follow-up video, so let me know if you guys want me to do more videos like this. I love my big season-long retrospectives, but I also wouldn't mind covering some smaller sections of the franchise. I mean, this isn't really smaller, this is 20 episodes, but you get the idea. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and have a great day. I'll see you next time.